It's your boy E here from the GSMC Wrestling Laureate Podcast to give you guys another exciting, intricate episode. Sorry, I can't speak tonight. Episode for professional wrestling. I cover all the hot takes in terms of wrestling rumors, in terms of everything going on in the wrestling world: WWE, TNA, Ring of Honor, the NWA, and just all over the wrestling spectrum. So I'm always here. Happy Thursday, you guys. Hope you guys made it through the week. I know sometimes, y'all working Monday through Friday it could be quite a doozy. 9 to 5 jobs, you come home, all you want to do is take a shower, maybe go to sleep. But, you go to, just grab your favorite drink, grab your favorite snack, sit down with Eric from the GSMC Wrestling Laureate Podcast. So thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Wrestling Laureate Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. We have a great show for you today lined up. We have our AEW Dynamite review. We have our Thursday Night Wrestling preview, where we go through Ring of Honor, TNA Impact, and newly I've been kind of covering the National Wrestling Alliance because it's recently been it's going to be big. It's going to be big. Obviously, you have Billy Corgan, the front man for the Smashing Pumpkins. He's the lead singer and he's also the president of the National Wrestling Alliance, the NWA. And they recently signed a deal with they've always kind of been on the CW app, but they're going to make their way onto live television. You have your NWA Power on Tuesday nights, so that's going to be pretty dope. We're going to cover that. And then we're also going to jump into. We also have WWE stars recently been. Ever since Jordan Grace, she's made waves. She's made waves opening that Forbidden Door in WWE. Now you have stars like Drew McIntyre, Xavier Woods, and Kofi Kingston wanting to kind of jump back or kind of like jump into like the TNA wrestling pool because I think Xavier Woods and Drew McIntyre, have had careers back in, TNA. Their successes were prominent. And then our segment 4, we're going to jump into my Eric's World Cup of the tag team division in wrestling history, kind of inspired after the NWA's the Crockett Cup that's been around for ages. So kind of that prestige. I hope kind of illuminates or emulates. I hope to emulate it on my talk to you guys about my Sweet 16. I have 16 tag teams throughout wrestling history: the 80s, the 70s, I think, the 90s, the 2000s, all of wrestling tag team, demographics are covered here. And my fifth and final segment, we're going to jump into our Thursday night wrestling superstar spotlight. And we're going to cover the amazing Andre the Giant, the eighth wonder of the world. But before anything absolutely happens, remember, I want to remind you guys to use the tips and donations link at the GSMC Sports Podcast. Remember to use the podcast.net link you see right there, right in front of you that I can't even read right now. But yeah, it really does help the show, guys. Leave a positive review. Give me some questions. Tell me what you like. Tell me what you don't like. Tell me some, rumors or maybe some wrestling news that you've heard yourself. Perhaps, maybe you have a hot take on wrestling. I absolutely love different perspectives in terms of wrestling. Wrestling fans the wrestling fans are different. We're not like your average NFL, NBA, MLB. We like to kind of bounce off different opinions and stuff like that. Like if I say, hey, the Warriors suck back in 2017 with Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, and Klay Thompson, all you guys, wearing the gold and blue, you're like, screw this guy. This guy's a Spurs fan because, what you did to Kawhi Leonard. Pachulia, you stuck your foot out there on purpose. I'm just kidding. No, moving on. Oh, God. I have a I'm moving on. It was a crazy series. It was a crazy series. They bounced the San Antonio Spurs out after Kawhi Leonard got injured. They were up 20 points, but I don't want to get into that. This is a wrestling podcast. If you want to hear basketball, we have my man Nelson on the GSMC Basketball Podcast to give you all the cool basketball factoids and all that. And it's the NBA playoffs. So obviously, it's going to be amazing. It's going to be amazing. I recently saw that the Dallas Mavericks will take on the Boston Celtics in the NBA Finals. Happy for you Boston fans. Happy for you Dallas fans. I kind of thought Minnesota was going to make it, at least kind of just make it a series. But, like I said, we're going to move on. We have wrestling stuff to talk about. So once again, just put your questions up on top of the list. Just use the GSMCpodcast.net link. Give me your questions. And yeah, it really does help the podcast. So again, the link is at the GSMC podcast.net. So let's go ahead and jump right into our first segment where we're going to talk about our AEW Dynamite review. So let's dig on into it. First and foremost, you see Mercedes Moné come out, and it's cool and all. It's cool. I love what AEW is trying to do with Mercedes Moné. And she said, Was it worth the wait? She said, "It was it worth the wait? Was it worth the wait that we waited 2.5 months as soon as Mercedes Moné, aka Sasha Banks, making her in-ring debut in terms of AEW?" I honestly, in my opinion, I kind of thought it was a little naive in terms of because she was just kind of sitting back, just cutting the same promo over and over and over again, and and that can kind of get tiresome. But you can't really blame Mercedes for that. Obviously you have executives, you have creative officers backstage that could put Mercedes Moné in a match prior to AEW's Double or Nothing that happened in Las Vegas on Sunday, but like I said before, they could be building up something, and the buildup was for her to beat Willow Nightingale for the TBS, for the AEW TBS Championship. And like I said before, I kind of didn't like it. I'm a huge Willow Nightingale fan, and yeah. So there. Also, she mentioned the celebration of 5 years of AEW, and that's true. Essentially, 5 years ago, the first ever AEW Double or Nothing was pay per viewed in 2000, and I think that would make it 2019 when AEW was starting, back when WWE was, in terms of ratings, in terms of storylines, in terms of promoting, in terms of everything, WWE was just like, they weren't doing well. They weren't doing well. So AEW, you had the founders, you had the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, and you also have Cody Rhodes build this company that ultimately was, going to kick WWE's ass. But, things do change. Obviously, I believe Vince McMahon was a huge reason of why that kind of unfolded. And now you have the Triple H, Paul Levesque era, huge Triple H fan, arguably. He's on my Mount Rushmore of the best wrestlers in the entire world. So there's no surprise to me that Triple H is doing really, really well in terms of creative operations. And then, so then you saw, Sky Blue come out, and she was ultimately responsible for Mercedes Moné being attacked on AEW Dynamite that was a long time ago. Stuff, dang, that was about a month and a half ago. A month and a half ago, where the screen went black, everybody thought it was Julia Hart because you had the House of Black with Malachi, House of Black with Malachi Black, Buddy Matthews, and Brody King. But now it's it was Sky Blue, so that the plot thickens. But AEW World Champion Swerve Strickland against Killswitch. This match was pretty cool. Honestly, I kind of liked seeing Swerve Strickland. I love seeing Swerve, the AEW World Champion. I like seeing him to go in, night out to fight. Definitely still proven. Not, in my opinion, I feel like he does not have to prove anything because I know his intensity, his heart, his charisma, and ultimately his goal is to become an amazing AEW World superstar. And I think he's done nothing short of that. He's been absolutely amazing, cutting good promos, cutting good matches. You saw him with Christian Cage. You saw him defeat the unbeatable Samoan submission machine. It's kind of a tongue twister. Samoan submission machine. Samoa Joe to gain the AEW World Heavyweight Championship. So definitely loves Swerve Strickland. He beat Killswitch. I'm pretty sure everybody kind of saw that coming. So yeah. Next, we saw Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho welcomes, his segment, the TV time. He mentioned a bounty hunter who confronted Chris and kind of backed up Chris Jericho because Chris Jericho has been prominent in the world of professional wrestling for just so long. As soon as he had that match with Dynasty where he beat Hook for the FTW championship, all the fans, in the arena were like, please retire, please. Not really kind of giving Chris Jericho the kind of the credit he deserves because ultimately he left WWE and in shocking fashion, like you saw Keith Lee, like you saw Christian Cage, like you saw Adam Copeland, and like you saw Adam Cole come to AEW against all odds. Everybody thought he was going to re-sign with WWE, but Chris Jericho, he kind of, I think he's innovated. I think he's happy the way Tony Khan is kind of running the business kind of back there. So Chris Jericho, got to pay your respects. Although you might not like the guy, I am the learning tree. You might not like him, but he's definitely one of the best, superstars to kind of get under the fans' skin. He's a good heel, he's a good babyface, and he could be ultimately a good manager. So Chris Jericho definitely up there in terms of Hall of Fame business. So you saw Hook interrupt Chris Jericho's celebration. And, obviously Big Bill was in the ring, but shockingly, you saw Samoa Joe make his return back to AEW. Well, not back to AEW, but kind of back into like kind of like the mainframe. Like he was fighting matches. Obviously, you do not mention an episode of AEW Dynamite, Rampage, or Saturday Night Collision without Samoa Joe. He's a huge factor. He's kind of hard to miss. He's a big ass dude. I wouldn't want to cross paths with him. He would probably tap me out in like 2 seconds. I know 2 seconds, Eric. What are you talking about? It's one, two, three. I'd be like, oh, stop. I'm just kidding. No, like it would be kind of crazy. Samoa Joe comes out to help Hook, ultimately, kind of creating this bond, this, kind of protege, this prodigal son kind of thing, maybe out there helping Taz. The FTW former champion Hook is the son of the Hall of Famer Taz. So, it should be interesting. You saw John Moxley, of the IWGP Eliminator match against Rocky Romero. John Moxley is definitely one of the best superstars to even touch, God's green earth. He was amazing in WWE. He was amazing in New Japan Professional Wrestling. Did some time in Ring of Honor, and recently he defeated Konosuke Takeshita of New Japan Professional Wrestling. In the ring, you saw Don Callis try his best to kind of help John Moxley lose. Didn't work out. John Moxley once again proves that he is the wild thing. You make my heart sing. Obviously, it's a good look for him. I like John Moxley. I like the way WWE missed out on not signing John Moxley. Obviously they had that stupid, character where he was the moral compass and he was burning Seth Rollins shirts and stuff like that. That was just stupid and absolutely stupid. Something that probably Paul Levesque, kind of looks back on. He's like, freaking Vince. Just kidding. But I mean, kind of moving on. So you saw Don Callis offer a contract to Orange, freshly squeezed Orange Cassidy. Orange Cassidy, like I kind of predicted, tore up the contract right in front of Don Callis' face. Don Callis is a snake. He's a troll. He has no business being out in the wrestling world. But of course, you had the former best friend Trent Beretta come out and kind of just tell Orange Cassidy that their rival, just because Beretta lost, is it's far from over. And it's you have two gifted superstars that are going to go in and night out to put on good wrestling matches. I honestly kind of liked it. Usually, I'm kind of against like sometimes like when you have the guy trying to pander to the storyline too much where he keeps coming back for more and more and more, losing, kind of like the, Triple H and Mankind, Cactus Jack back in the early 2000s of WWE. It was to a point where I was like, all right, like, why are you still putting these guys together if you're going to make Mankind lose night in, night out? He's getting his ass kicked, throwing him through the cell, through announce tables. The guy has thumbtacks all over his freaking face. Like, but this Trent Beretta, Orange Cassidy, I think it's going to go really well. Honestly, agree with that 1010%. Rapidly running out of time for our first segment. And the TBS Championship, Sky Blue, Mercedes Moné, obviously, she got control real quick of the match. And you ultimately saw her win the championship. You saw the New Japan Professional Wrestling Strong Champion come out, confronting Mercedes Moné. So Mercedes Moné is on the radar of all the women's division in Ring of Honor, in New Japan Professional Wrestling, and AEW, because recently those three companies have been merged thanks to Tony Khan. So Mercedes Moné has a huge hill to climb. Hopefully she can show fans, was it worth the wait? We'll see. Moving on, we saw Chris Statlander move into a heel role for her singles push. Honestly, definitely love that. Love that. She came back from 2 ACL injuries. If you're a football fan, or I think it is prominent in baseball, in NBA a little bit, but ACL, like, that's, kind of your lower, half of your knee. You kind of need that to ultimately freaking move. So, love that Chris Statlander's like finally making her step into the singles push. As a heel, absolutely love it. So we saw the Elite come out to address the TNT Championship. Kazuchika Okada, the Young Bucks, and Jack Perry. The Jack Perry wanted to make sure that everybody realized that the Elite, they run this shiz. Adam Copeland has recently been forced, and he's been stripped from the TNT Championship because of his stunt with that barbed wire steel cage match with Malachi Black. Breaking his ankle, breaking his tibia. He's gonna have to need surgery. He's 50 years old. He's gonna come back, but it's probably gonna take a little, more than the average, wrestler there because of his age. There's not to be ashamed of that. Jack Perry was all on his high horse because he pinned, Daniel Bryan. Damn it, I always get that wrong. Bryan Danielson. And then they showed that they bought Okada a Lamborghini, and it was just so funny. It was just so funny. Like Okada was like, "Are you?" Like it was just like it was so fake that it was absolutely phenomenal. I thought it was great. Thought it was great. And you saw the EVPs making a tough decision of stripping Adam Cole. Yeah, the tough decision. And they automatically wanted to crown Jack Perry as the new TNT champion. But Christopher Daniels, the interim vice president of AEW appointed by Tony Khan, basically said there's going to be qualifying matches, winners to get to Forbidden Door for a ladder match to determine the AEW TNT champion. The Elite didn't like that. They wanted to kick Christopher Daniels, where the sun don't shine, but ultimately you saw Daddy Ass and the Acclaim defend Daniels. And then you have the Casino Gauntlet match. You saw Jay White. I love Switchblade Jay White. Definitely think he's a huge singles wrestler. He can have a lot of success in terms of AEW if he makes it so. You saw Orange Cassidy against all odds because a lot of people said he was injured and, because he was beat the hell out of by Don Callis and Trent Beretta. And then you saw Will Ospreay. You saw the Bastard Pack, Mystico, Claudio, and I think there was a couple other superstars. But overall, Will Ospreay picked up the win. The AEW International Champion will kind of move on to fight and challenge Swerve Strickland for the AEW World Heavyweight Championship at AEW Forbidden Door. Should be pretty awesome. Swerve Strickland came out to congratulate him, kind of have that face off that you kind of have from champion to champion. So, definitely, love the AEW Dynamite. It's getting better and better. The ratings are increasing, which I feel like is really good in terms of WWE and AEW because, the more competition, the better the product is. That's, supply and demand right there, dude. Economics 101. So, don't go anywhere. We have our Thursday night wrestling preview. We dive into the world of Ring of Honor, TNA Impact Wrestling. We're also going to touch on to the National Wrestling Alliance. So, hey, don't go anywhere.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right. Welcome back to the GSMC Wrestling Laureate Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Just to kind of reflect our first segment, we talked about our AEW Dynamite review. And, moving forward, we have our Thursday night wrestling preview. But before we move on any further, I want to remind you guys to use the tips and donations link at the GSMCpodcast.net. Give me your questions, comments, concerns. Tell me you like me. Tell me you don't like me. Here at the GSMC Sports Network, I do want to gravitate around the philosophy of peace, love, and positivity all the way. So, don't be afraid to leave a positive review. Tell me that you hate my shirt and I can take it. I think I can take it. Don't be too harsh. I'm just kidding. No, moving on. This put your questions up on top so I can see it. Once again, it really does help the show. And the link is at the GSMC podcast.net. We have a chat right now. We have Mary Carlos that said, go Spurs. Definitely, Spurs fan out there. I'm a huge San Antonio Spurs fan, mostly because of my brother. Got into it, Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker, the big three. Honestly, in my opinion, I don't think anybody can kind of do it better than they can. But It's just that philosophy that their head coach Greg Popovich had of play for the name on the front of your jersey as opposed to the name on your back. With social media being so prominent, especially in the world today, so many NBA players, so many just professional athletes in general, just all they care about really is themselves. And don't want to spark a lot of argument. Obviously, if you have something to chat about, hit it up in the chat, hit up the GSMCpodcast.net, tell me your opinions about it. Or we can talk about some good old fashioned wrestling. So yeah, let's go ahead and move on. So we're going to talk about a Thursday night wrestling preview. We're talking about Impact Wrestling first. We're building up momentum for Against All Odds, which is going to be the next TNA Impact pay-per-view. Tensions with the ABC, Ace Austin and Chris Bay. They will be fighting tonight. Obviously, you saw them dropping their match against Speedball Mountain. Now you had the two competitors last week on Impact fight for a chance at Mustafa Ali's X Division Championship. That division is definitely heating up. One of my most favorite divisions. Solomet, I was at first kind of mostly a WWE fan, but after doing a little more research, and I'm like, damn, these guys in TNA really bring it. Ring of Honor, AEW, and it's just the world of wrestling. There's not, I kind of hate it how you have this tribalistic kind of view on the whole thing where people are like, oh, you either have to be a WWE fan. No, you have to be an AEW fan. If you're an AEW fan, you have to hate WWF. If you're a WWF, WWE fan, you have to hate WCW and Eric Bischoff and Vince Russo. Like, that's not the case. We're a wrestling fandom. We're a wrestling fan. The more competition, the better. It brings out the best. So you have that kind of building. You have Eddie Edwards with Brian Myers and Alicia Edwards to fight the up-and-coming Joe Hendry. Hendry is trying to silence the system. The system has been absolutely dominant ever since Moose has become the top dog, the TNA Impact World Heavyweight Champion. So that's going to kind of be figured out tonight, heading toward Against All Odds. Although I feel like their momentum is just so strong. The system right now they're the system. You either abide by it or you get punished. So you have Mustafa Ali is he's against Leon Slater. Leon Slater is an electric, promising X Division up and comer competitor. Next we see Sami Callihan against Jonathan Grisham, Stephanie Launder, and Xia Brookside. Xia Brookside is looking to build momentum, hoping to have a potential shot at Jordan Grace's Knockouts Championship. You have Steve Macklin against Mike Santana. Should be a pretty interesting bout. Now we're moving on to Ring of Honor. Ring of Honor Honor Club of episode 66. We have a proving ground match between the Ring of Honor World Women's Champion Athena against Viva Vaughn. Viva Vaughn, the last time they faced on January 9th of 2023, you saw Athena picking up the victory in a match that lasted under 2 minutes, which, it's kind of bad. Kind of bad for, Viva Vaughn there. Athena is one of the longest reigning champions in Ring of Honor. She's at 538 days. If you don't know who Athena is, she's formerly known as Ember Moon of WWE Raw and WWE SmackDown NXT, and kind of surpassing Reigns. You know what I mean? Like, she's right there. The Ring of Honor TV title, the longest reign, is held by Samoa Joe with 574 days. Next is Jay Lethal's Ring of Honor TV title reign at 567, and the Ring of Honor World Heavyweight Champion Samoa Joe also had a pretty good reign at 645 days. And then you had Nigel McGuinness, his reign as well. That was 545. So obviously, Athena, highly impressive, definitely one of the best wrestlers in, women's wrestlers in all of professional wrestling. Athena, I really loved Athena back when she was with WWE. Ember Moon, still to this day, if they ask me, name like two top five, WWE women's wrestlers, and gotta respect Ember Moon. Ember Moon, she kind of came out with like Asuka. I think she defeated Asuka. Don't quote me on that, but I don't know. It was just really great. It was just really great, her run, and kind of crazy, but at the same time, super happy for her. Absolutely overjoyed that she went to Ring of Honor to kind of live up to her potential. Something that WWE creative that did not really understand under the Vince McMahon era. So you have the Queen Aminata of TNA Impact Wrestling waiting in the wings. Obviously, she's going to be the next competitor. I think she's going to fight Athena heading toward their next super card, which is I think is in a week. I believe it is. Don't quote me on that. Next, we have a proving ground match between the Ring of Honor World Tag Team Champions, the Undisputed Kingdom, against Matt Taven and Mike Bennett against Jacoby Watt and Nick Comoroto. Ultimately, the Undisputed Kingdom has been absolutely just untouchable. They've been absolutely untouchable. They're one of the greatest tag teams that's definitely, graced God's green earth. You have, they defeated people like the Infantry, the Outrunners, and the Iron Savages. And, it's only going to get better. It's only going to get better. The Workhorsemen will fight Top Flight tonight. The premier athletes in a trios, 6-man match will fight the Bollywood Boys. And so then we also have a triple threat bout against we have Action Andretti, Lee Johnson, and Aaron Solo fighting in a triple threat match tonight. Zach Knight in action, Red Velvet competes, Serpentico in action, and so much more. Make sure you subscribe to TNA Plus. Of course, if you want to become more of a TNA fan, and obviously I really want to, or they're live on Access TV. You can address it. You can kind of get access to it through YouTube.com. That's gonna be awesome. And to kind of touch on, before we kind of run out of time here, the National Wrestling Alliance, we have NWA Power presents Back to the Territories happening Saturday, June 1st at Knoxville, Tennessee, Carnes High School. You have all the territories kind of coming together for the NWA. If you have Exodus Pro in Cleveland, Ohio, the NWA Chicago, and the NWA Southeast. It's a Joe Kazana product. And you also have NWA affiliate organizations like Fight the World, Crossfire Wrestling, and World League Wrestling. So we're going to crown a new NWA Mid-America champion, and we're also going to finish the Crocker Cup. Should be pretty interesting. And NWA 76, their anniversary show, spectacular, headed to Philadelphia. NWA's biggest event of the year is going to be NWA 76. So go ahead and check that out. It's always nice to kind of dab into things bigger than WWE, bigger than not bigger so to speak, but I don't know why, but I really like the old school aspects of like Impact Wrestling, Ring of Honor, and the NWA. So we're gonna move on. We have WWE's stars interested in a TNA appearance. Obviously, you saw Jordan Grace make her appearance on WWE NXT, and we're going to kind of dive into that. So, hey, don't go anywhere.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
All right. Welcome back to the GSMC Wrestling Laureate Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Just to kind of reflect on what we talked about. We talked about our AEW Dynamite review. We also talked about our Thursday Night Wrestling preview. We jump into the world of Ring of Honor, TNA Impact, and the National Wrestling Alliance, headlined by Billy Corgan, frontman of the Smashing Pumpkins. Trying to take a wrestling product, try to promote it, try to make the best out of it. And to be honest, I think he's doing a really, really good job. Creating different, streaming service. Partnerships, also, creating a partnership with the CW. And it's only going to get, better and better. So, just to make sure, we have our WWE stars interested into joining TNA. So we're going to jump right on into that. But before I move on any further, I want to remind you guys to just hit up the chat. Hit up the tips and donations link at the GSMCpodcast.net. It really does help the show, guys, 1,010%. Obviously, the show's a lot better with a little fan interaction. I don't want to just be babbling on like an idiot just up here, be like, Eric, stop talking. No, like it's awesome. Ultimately, like I said before, wrestling fans are a different breed. We ultimately love, kind of being a part of each other's opinions and stuff like that. If you go to any kind of wrestling, conversation, if you have the same opinion as the other guy, you're a freaking schmuck, bro. I'm just kidding, no. But kind of moving on. Before I move on any further, before we move on into our next segment, which WWE stars are kind of moving, looking forward to kind of the cross combination of TNA. I have a message from Ralph Rodriguez. What problems do you see in the future in WWE with Triple H booking in this new era? Being brutally honest, and I'm a Paul Levesque guy, 1,010%. Even Paul Heyman said it with himself within the WWE Hall of Fame speech. It's just old habits. Old habits. You see WWE NXT stars come up, and people, the creative, the chiefs or the officers did not know what the hell to do with them. Obviously, you kind of saw this with Malachi Black, Andrade, and then Adam Cole making it up to the main roster. With the Undisputed Era. Now they're the Undisputed Kingdom. But what Triple H has done so far really, really well is kind of just shock the crowd, his unpredictable nature. Vince McMahon was mostly known for being super predictable. Obviously, you had big WWE superstars who made it to AEW and helped promote the product in 2019, like the Mark Henry. You saw Paul White, and they knew Vince McMahon. They knew how he was. They knew his nature. But as soon as Triple H kind of took over, I think Paul White and a lot of superstars that jumped ship to AEW, and that includes executives, former superstars, kind of looked at it. They're like, man, let's really stick it to Vince. Let's give him a reason to kind of hate it and to kind of But as soon as Triple H took over, I feel like they have a respect for Triple H, for Paul Levesque, ultimately to be like, Triple H is a dude. He's a dog. He's been with the WWE. He's worked his way up. It's not because he ended up having a relationship with Stephanie McMahon. It's because he worked his arse off. Definitely Paul Levesque. He's seen the industry inside and out. He's seen how bad the product was with Vince McMahon, and I think he's doing everything he can to ultimately make the WWE kind of become a better, product, for not just wrestling fans, but kind of just for future fans. You see him appealing to little kids. A lot of people are like, "Oh, wrestling is bad when it's not PG-13." But under the PG era, although it took a little bit of time, I'm not going to, dispute that fact. I feel like Paul Levesque is, kind of taking this toward the right level, toward the right spot. So, that's, kind of my thought toward the thing. But so, yeah, let's go ahead and move on. So we have our TNA, WWE stars interested in joining the TNA kind of movement. Obviously, you saw Jordan Grace enter the WWE NXT, ultimately wanting to kind of open that forbidden door. And she did such a magnificent job. It was awesome. It was sick. Jordan Grace showing up in WWE, still constantly making waves. Obviously, it happened on the May 28th episode of WWE NXT. Grace was revealed as Roxanne Perez's next battleground opponent. And she said this, and I quote, she said, "I'm relieved that I got to do that surprise. That's awesome. Surprises in wrestling, I feel, make it bigger. When no one expects it, I feel good. I feel excited. This is a huge thing for the wrestling world." And that's absolutely correct. What she thought was going to happen is exactly happened. I watched it, and I watched, obviously the recording, because, when I record right now, I'm obviously with you guys. So I recorded it, and I swear to God, I never checked TikTok, Instagram, or Facebook for updates because, I want to be genuine with you guys. So, I kind of wait. I get done with the podcast at 9, put on NXT, put on AEW, put on Friday Night SmackDown, put on Monday Night Raw, and, I'm the last one to get on the news. That's why I'm like, hey, if you want to hit up the chats, not for spoiler alerts, I'm just kidding. If you want to, if you have something juicy, if something juicy happened, absolutely hit it up in the comments. Absolutely. I'm not going to be too mad. I'm just kidding. Moving on. Like I said before, I think this is great. Jordan Grace will be on NXT this week. Natalia earlier in this year, Natalia Neidhart of the Hart Foundation earlier this year made an offer to Jordan Grace to dude, let's break open that forbidden door that's been closed for WWE and the WWF for so long. Just imagine if you had the opportunity for a WCW and a WWE during the Monday Night Wars, kind of like a collaboration there. That would be absolutely sick. Imagine seeing The Undertaker finally fight Sting. Imagine seeing Bill Goldberg finally fight Stone Cold Steve Austin. That's just things that's like, as soon as WWF accumulated the WCW and the ECW when Vince McMahon bought him out, and he just absolutely just threw him to the dogs. I want to prove that the WWF, we bought you. You're our product. You're below us. And that's something that Vince McMahon should have never done. The WCW, the WWF would have been better as separate entities. Imagine if Shane McMahon never would have came on Monday Night Nitro. Imagine having two separate entities that nobody really knows that they are, kind of accumulated, kind of partnerships, and it just would have made things better. Would have made things better because you have both creative ideas in the press room talking at the same time. Be like, okay, we're gonna do this on Thursday Night Thunder. What are you gonna do on Thursday Night SmackDown? Because SmackDown used to be on Thursday nights. Monday Night Raw used to be on Monday Nitro. But Eric Bischoff really didn't do, it's kind of a good job in terms of this, like waking up that dragon, stroking Vince McMahon's ego, so to speak. So obviously, that never really came to part. But we're kind of moving on here. So we had Ingrid Isley. She's the floor director at TNA, took to social media on Instagram, and she said, and I quote, "So can at Ace Creed Wind," which is Xavier Woods, and AJStyles.org, which is AJ Styles, come across the line for a bit. Like, that's cool. Like, I like that. I like how TNA. I feel like WWE stars on TNA would be absolutely awesome, and not just for TNA, for WWE. A lot of people, because Vince McMahon created the narrative that we don't touch TNA, we don't touch WCW, we don't touch AEW, we don't touch Ring of Honor, we don't touch the NWA, yada yada yada, because we're better than they are, and that's not true. Why do the wrestling fans have to suffer because of the promoters, because the owners, because the chairman, because the vice president, because the presidents have this huge ego? Why do we have to suffer? Obviously, I would absolutely love to see Moose take on AJ Styles. I would love that. I would love to see the AEW champion Swerve Strickland fight against Cody Rhodes. Are you kidding me? That's crazy. That would be amazing. But, obviously I'm not, part of the wrestling, I'm part of the podcasting world, but I'm not, part of the executive world. Although I would kick ass. WWE should really hire me. Check out my resume. Just kidding. No. Moving on. And Xavier Woods took to social media as well. He said, order of business would be first, let me and Kofi would take those tag team titles, talking about TNA. And then second of all, we would, make a song with Joe Hendry. Love Joe Hendry. Love his creative mind. Love his musical mind. You also saw Drew McIntyre embracing his world championship run through the history of TNA. He said, doors open both ways. And that's true. That's true. Ever since Jordan Grace came on, a lot of people think that it's just Jordan Grace that WWE wants. It hasn't been, written in ink yet. It hasn't been, really kind of, volatile toward the reason why TNA and WWE could possibly be kind of having this partnership. There's still a lot of doors that could be open. And that's something that it's huge for WWE. It's huge for WWE. Love it as a wrestling fan. If you really honestly want to become one of the best wrestling, or scratch that, sports entertainment conglomerate in the world, you can't be afraid to make change. A lot of people do make change. They say 90% of people who are born in the same zip code, 90% of them die in the same zip code. And that, some obviously was a stat I heard from Colin Cowherd earlier today on the Herd. But it makes sense. It makes sense. If you're a person who is afraid of change, it's not going to be, your life isn't going to be as exciting, because you get into this routine, and routines are good. And I know I'm going a little tangent here talking about things other than wrestling. But ultimately, I think WWE should embrace the change that they've never made. WWE and WWF has never made this change in the world of wrestling, opening that forbidden door, having wrestlers randomly come out. I think Paul Levesque is different. I think Triple H is more innovative. I think he really honestly knows how big this could be for wrestling and its fans. So yeah, Triple H is doing an amazing job, 110%. Doors open both ways. AJ Styles could possibly surprise Moose. I know AJ Styles' WWE contract is currently kind of being up right now. They have not come to a deal as I know of. But would it be crazy if they signed AJ Styles to be like, hey, like, why don't you go over to, your old stomping ground in TNA? So can just kind of, rile up the crowd a little bit. Like, AJ Styles would take that in a heartbeat, first and foremost. And second of all, this is his home. This is where he found the most success. AJ Styles has been, he asked Nick Aldis on Friday Night SmackDown, "What's next for me?" And he was like, "Dude, honestly, you failed against Randy Orton in the King of the Ring qualifying match, and you lost to Cody Rhodes at WWE Backlash in France. I can't really help you, dude. I can't really help you." So AJ Styles definitely making a jump back into TNA, or if he's signed by TNA and kind of they go back and forth and stuff like that, it would be kind of like we never really lost AJ Styles, but I hope he stays a WWE superstar. I honestly do 110%. So yeah, and then you also got to think of TNA superstars. You saw Bully Ray make an appearance at WrestleMania. The LA Knight is a former TNA champion. Kurt Angle, part of the training staff with WWE. He's huge. He's signed to a Hall of Famer contract, and it's just huge. It's just huge. You have Cody Rhodes' influence on cross brands. Cody Rhodes is probably the ultimate depiction of what success takes you when you kind of dabble around these world of wrestling. WWE ultimately rejected Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes was a one-time Intercontinental champion, and he was a two-time tag team champion with Goldust. And then he left, went to Ring of Honor, and went to New Japan Professional Wrestling, with the TNA. He started his own company in AEW, and honestly, if you probably could take any props or any advice from anybody, I think Cody Rhodes would probably be the best person to do it. So I think that kind of also ultimately kind of came into the decision of why Triple H wanted to put the belt on Cody Rhodes, because if you think about it, you kind of and also we do have Matt Cardona, formerly known as Zack Ryder, woo woo woo, it, but and you have Nick Aldis. Nick Aldis used to be in TNA as well, but you got to remember that right now in WWE, they don't really have a savior besides Cody. I know a lot of, they're building up this young bloodline with Solo Sikoa, Tama Tonga, and Tongaloa, but you don't have John Cena, you don't have Roman Reigns, you don't have The Rock, and you don't have Brock Lesnar. So obviously WWE is trying to do everything in their power to be kind of prominent in the professional wrestling industry, which is kind of a huge reason why I feel like they kind of reached out to TNA and be like, "Hey guys, essentially we're not a struggling company, but the guy who had a huge ego and, talked down about you guys is gone. We can make this work. We can make this work for your wrestlers, for our wrestlers. We can just make business work." And that's something that wrestling of course, Vince McMahon and the WWF should have done for the longest time. But yeah, obviously, didn't really succumb to earth. But yeah, we're rapidly running out of time. I always do this with my podcast, is because I love talking to you guys. Love the fans. Love my WWE Wrestling Laureates. I'm just kidding, no. Well, not that I don't love you, but moving on. I like to jabber on like an idiot. So we're gonna move on to our fourth segment. We're gonna talk about Eric's World Cup greatest tag teams. Not gonna introduce the brackets yet. Not gonna introduce the matchups. I just want to introduce the tag teams. The Sweet 16. We got 16 tag teams in the world of wrestling and history that will surface on my amazing Tag Team World Cup. So, who is going to be on the list? Take your guesses.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
All right. Welcome back to the GSMC Wrestling Laureate Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Just kind of reflect on what we talked about. We had our AEW Dynamite preview. Go ahead and check that video back out. We have our Thursday Night Wrestling review, we jump into the Ring of Honor, Impact Wrestling, National Wrestling Alliance, basically anything other than WWE, because WWE constantly, it's trending constantly, but sometimes, I like focusing on the little guy. I know there's some viewers over here that ask questions about the NWA, that ask questions about TNA and Ring of Honor, so you never want to leave those guys out. So, obviously we're a wrestling fandom. We're a family together. So, yeah. And then we moved on to our third segment. We talked about WWE superstars wanting to make that jump to TNA wrestling. And I think ultimately it'd be a great idea. But yeah, we're going to move on to our Eric's World Cup, the greatest tag teams. I have my Sweet 16. Can't wait to share it with you guys. Hope you guys are excited as I am. If you guys like the list, let me know. But ultimately, if you don't, let me know in the chat. So obviously, of course, comes with the list of any type of media, any type of YouTuber, any type of wrestling podcaster. There's going to be a little biased here. Okay, so I got my first team. We're going to talk about the Midnight Rockers. Love the Midnight Rockers. 1,010%. Huge Shawn Michaels fan. Triple H, Shawn Michaels. Two wrestlers that's on my Mount Rushmore. Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty. They're high flying. They were very charismatic, and they were fun to watch. They definitely made tag team a lot fun to watch. All right, next we have the Rock and Roll Express with Ricky Morton and Robert Gibson, the NWA. They won the NWA tag team titles 9 times. Definitely one of those historical factors. Love to kind of add a couple of wrestlers, a couple of tag team tandems from the 80s, from the 70s, from the 90s, and stuff like that. So that's another team. Another team that we have Matt and Jeff Hardy, the Hardy Boys. Basically invented the ladder match. They invented it with Edge and Christian and the Dudley Boys, the TLC match. And honestly, what they did for WWF back in 2000, they revived the tag team division. Because at first it was just like, tag team matches. Yeah, it was cool and all. But as soon as the Hardy Boys kind of took the scene there, as soon as they came out with like Michael Hayes and stuff like that, they were kind of able to, create this tag team division that none of us of the professional wrestling, kind of circuit really kind of expected. We didn't really expect these two brothers coming from Carolina to put on such a maneuvers, and their tandem. The best thing about these guys, and I know this is going to sound cliche, is their brothers, their chemistry, the way that they're able to pull on maneuvers. Like you would just be like, dude, how the hell did the other one knew that they're going to do that or set up that match or set up that move? Like, we didn't really know that, and that's something that the Hardy Boys did really, really well. Moving on, so we have the Hart Foundation. Want to mostly focus on Bret the Hitman Hart and Jim the Anvil Hart. Obviously, they were amazing. Their tag team chemistry as well, their technical wrestling, and just their overall experience. Some of the reasons why wrestlers loved fighting Bret Hart and Owen Hart was not just because, oh, they're Harts, I'm going to get a lot of, likes, or, well, back in the day, you didn't really have social media. Be like, oh, I'm going to get a lot of people paying attention to my matchups because I'm fighting the Hart Foundation. And that's not the truth. Most of the time, 95% of the time, people fought these guys, Bret, the Hitman Hart, and Owen Hart, because of their capabilities inside the ring. They took care of other wrestlers. You didn't have to worry about them botching any moves. You didn't have to worry about them screwing up promos or anything like that. These guys were professionals to a T, and that's the reason why they are on my list for one of the top, tag teams, ever in WWE professional wrestling. Next, we have, one of my favorites. We have the Legion of Doom, Hawk, and Animal. Your ideal power tag team, kind of meets an arsenal of aerial assassin attacks. Loved Animal, loved Hawk. Definitely think they were kind of, before their time in terms of professional wrestling. If I had to make kind of, and I might seem a little far-fetched about this, and you guys can definitely criticize me all you want in the chat. I kind of compare these guys to the way that the Street Profits are. I compare Hawk to a high flyer, to a charismatic Montez Ford. I compare Animal to a powerhouse of D'Angelo Dawkins, who can occasionally hit that arsenal attack. You see D'Angelo Dawkins going through the ropes. You see him doing a flying senton over the top rope to the outside to attack. So I see a lot of these guys, and if you pay attention to the Street Profits, you have a move where they put them up on their you put the Street Profits put them up on their shoulders, and they kind of imitate how Animal and Hawk would do it. So that's the reason why they're on my list. And I'm rapidly running out of time. I'm sorry. Next we have the New Day. New Day, honestly, probably the greatest thing in WWE tag team division. Besides a tag team that I'm going to mention a little later, but they've had the success. And the best thing about these guys is that WWE knows that these guys are so great together that we cannot split them apart. Usually there's some bonehead, usually there's some dumb guy in the creative office is like, hey, let's push Big E's single career and have him turn his back on Kofi. And Xavier was, no, we don't got to do that. No, we don't got to do that at all. That would be bad for, not just Big E, but just the three superstars. And another good thing about the New Day that I really honestly respect is that these guys could probably make it to the singles competition. Yeah, they can make it in the singles division like Kofi Kingston, winning the WWE championship, Kofi Mania, like Big E, winning the WWE championship. And it's just like, it just makes sense. It's something that is hugely, it's aspiring. It's aspiring. I definitely love the New Day. Don't ever break the New Day up. I personally, as a wrestling fan, will quit WWE. I'll sign petitions. I'll go outside and quit my job, and I'll hold signs outside WWE. Boycott the WWE. No, I'm just kidding. I got kids. I got to make money. I got kids, dude. I'm just kidding. Moving on. So, so we have Edge and Christian. Edge and Christian, definitely some of the best Canadian wrestlers that's ever kind of touched God's green earth. You have Jinder Mahal, obviously the Hart Foundation, Owen Hart, Davey Boy Smith, and Bret Hart. But these guys were good. These guys were great. These guys had an amazing tag team chemistry. They started, from the bottom. They started with the Brood. They're a bunch of crazy vampire guys. But they were, like I said, they're one of the pride of the praises of the Canadian tag teams. Well, finally in bracket one, and we are, so much running out of time. I don't want to mention, but we got to mention the Young Bucks. The Young Bucks, Matthew and Nicholas Jackson, they're international. The reason why they're on this list, and they will probably go further than you guys expected, but they've been on Ring of Honor. They've been a part of New Japan Wrestling. They're, totally kicking ass in AEW right now. And they've been a part of many other more wrestling promotions. And the best thing about it, and this is my bias kind of kicking in, they are from Rancho Cucamonga, California, about 45 minutes from where I'm at. So, gotta respect, those guys right there. So, hope you guys, that was just the first bracket. That was just the first bracket. Rapidly running out of time. I know my man Emran has his GSMC soccer podcast after this. So, I know some of you soccer fans are watching this right now. They're like, dude, I don't care about wrestling. So, gonna have to cut it short. But, before, I kind of lead this last segment. I just want to remind you guys that on Monday we will kind of touch on tomorrow we will touch on who is a part of bracket 2, and I will remind you, just briefly of bracket 1. So let's go ahead and jump on into our fifth and final segment. Sorry, I apologize for that. Fifth and final segment, we're going to talk about Thursday Superstar Spotlight. We're going to briefly talk about Andre the Giant. So hey, don't go anywhere. All right, all right, all right. Welcome back to the GSMC Wrestling Laureate Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Just to kind of reflect on what we talked about, we had our AEW Dynamite review. We had our Thursday Night Wrestling preview. We talked about how WWE superstars are dying to get into TNA, and we also just recently kind of talked about my Eric's World Cup of the best tag teams in professional wrestling. I give you guys bracket 1. Going to give you bracket 2 tomorrow, I swear. Currently rapidly running out of time. Want to save some time for my man Emran. You have the GSMC Soccer Podcast happening at 9:30 tonight, so make sure you tune into that as well. But let's go and tune into our last segment. We have our Thursday Superstar Spotlight. We will talk about the 8th wonder of the world, Andre the Giant. Sorry if you guys are watching. If you guys are listening to this, ready to go to bed, and I just woke you up. I apologize. I know my voice can be annoying. I'm just kidding. I'm moving on. So Andre the Giant, his name was, and I know I'm going to butcher this, Andre Rene Rusimov from France. I wish I knew another language besides English. I'm just so boring. I'm just kidding. He was born May 19th of 1946. He was known as the 8th wonder of the world. He was booked by Vincent Kennedy McMahon as mostly a roving attraction. So I don't want to sound mean, or I don't want to sound like a dictator, but I think he was mostly said as like kind of like not like a freak show, but I was like, look at this guy. This guy is 7 foot tall. Wayne, and then like I feel like obviously Vincent Kennedy McMahon was a huge promoter. He had to do whatever he had to do to kind of survive in the professional wrestling industry circuit. You saw him featured on multiple WrestleManias, which does not surprise me. So you can't really blame him for because back in the day, in terms of media, in terms of TV, in terms of anything, it was a lot less sensitive back then. But let's not get into that. This isn't that kind of podcast. This is a wrestling podcast. Why do you guys do this to me? Why do you guys want to get me in trouble? So, he was great size. He was a great size. He had giganticism, which is an excess of hormones, usually taken by the human body and stuff like that. And it was also told that he actually kept growing as soon even if he died. So his cells were still growing, although he passed away, which is kind of crazy. Kind of a kind of what do I want to call it? I don't want to call it a disease because it's not, because people are born, because some people are born with it. I won't, with giganticism. What would you classify giganticism of? Disorder? No, that just sounds mean. Uh, he had this thing. He had this thing about him where he grew super hella tall. Kind of ultimately plagued into the reason why he passed away. But yeah, let's let's move on from that. He was known for his multiple feuds with WWE legends like Hulk Hogan. He headlined WrestleMania 3 in 1987. He defeated Hulk Hogan for the WWF Championship. He was an inaugural inductee of the WWE Hall of Fame. Also, he was a movie star. He was Frizik, the Giant, from the 1987 film The Princess Bride. I remember watching that film. It was super awesome. It was pretty cool to see Andre kind of in that. He dropped out of school and he became a hay baler for his father on his farm in March of 2000 and March 24th, 1973. He debuted in the in the Worldwide Wrestling Federation, which became the WWF. He was heavily a fan favorite. As soon as Andre the Giant came in, a lot of people respected this huge 8th wonder of the world that they're probably never going to see in their lifetime again. Something that Andre the Giant is highly respectable of is that he was a big man that was able to put on a good match. You don't see those nowadays. You kind of saw, Big Show. I like Big Show, love Paul White, but he couldn't put on a good show. Not at all. I love Braun Strowman. Braun Strowman's cool with the Wyatt family, and when he was a WWE champion, like, it was cool, but he didn't know how to put on a good match at all. Like, I love Keith Lee of the WWE NXT, and I think he's probably the closest to Andre the Giant as any of the superstars I mentioned, prior. But he couldn't put on as a good show as Andre the Giant could. Andre the Giant could play a great fan favorite, could be a great heel. Ultimately, he was a huge reason why WWE established so much success. You kind of needed that immovable object, that irresistible force. Well, obviously now that kind of belongs to Nia Jax, but Andre the Giant was great. Andre the Giant was definitely one of the, he came before his time. Obviously, he's a late great. Like I said, he's a huge fan favorite. In his first debut, he defeated Frank Valois and Bull Palmetti in a handicap match. And then 2 days later, he fought at Madison Square Garden and defeated Buddy Wolf. He passed away at the age of 46 in Paris, Paris, France, January 28th, 1993. He was basically in Paris to attend his father's funeral. He stayed a couple of days for his mother's birthday and ultimately tried to console his, obviously absolutely devastated mom. And when he was in Paris, passed away in a hotel room. Crazy. Imagine the mom. You lost your husband, you lost your son. It was probably terrible. I'm not going to say probably terrible because it's absolutely terrible. But Andre the Giant, just know that Andre the Giant is a huge icon. One of the best wrestlers that's ever touched God's green earth. Definitely shaped a lot of big men, inspired a lot of people. A lot of people probably the size of Andre the Giant, maybe 6 foot, 6'5" or higher, probably thought they did not have any future within the WWE or the professional wrestling circuit. And Andre the Giant was kind of there to kind of show people, that it's possible. It's possible. Don't quit on your dreams just because the size you are. Obviously, you're born the way you are. Why fight it? Why not embrace it? And Andre the Giant was a huge reason why WWE is so great, and definitely a reason why I have become a wrestling fan, 1,010%. So, yeah, hope you guys loved my show. If you didn't, then I got 3 words for you. I'm just kidding, no. No, just give it a chance. Give it a chance. But yeah. So, thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Wrestling Laureate Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Just to remind you guys to leave a positive review here at the GSMC Sports Network. We love peace, love, and positivity all the way, so don't be afraid to kind of do that. And also, don't forget to Superman punch that like and subscribe button to the show, to the network, and leave a positive review. It really does make a difference, guys. Here at the GSMC Sports Network, we invite you guys to follow us on Facebook, Twitter /X, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. And like I always say after the show, if I haven't made you a wrestling fan by now, we have the Chip Shot Football Podcast, Kevin's Football Podcast. The NFL is right around the corner. If you want to find about all the hottest news, all the headlines, all the breaking news of the NFL, make sure you tune into that, tune into their podcast. The best thing about it is it's absolutely free. You don't got to pay a subscription to YouTube. You don't got to pay a subscription to DirecTV. You don't got to subscribe to ESPN Plus. Just check us out on YouTube, GSMC Sports Network, and you have all your sports right there. We have Hoops and Heels with Samantha, your one-stop shop for women's wrestling. We have the Jeremy Lapidus, and we also have, TJ talking about sports and all that. We have the Andrew Tate Show. It's just sports and sports and sports. We talk about everything. And just did the GSMC Podcasting Network had things that if you stumbled upon this podcast and you're like, dude, I thought this was a podcast about, building card houses or something. I don't know. Like we have podcasts. The GSMC Podcasting Network has podcasts about absolutely anything that intrigues your interest. And like I said before, thank you for tuning into our show. It is a beautiful Thursday. Hope you guys enjoy your Friday. Tune in tomorrow at 8 p.m. I have my boy Nelson from the GSMC Basketball Podcast and my boy Christopher from the Fantasy Sports Podcast, and we're gonna tear it all. We're gonna tear it on up. So hey, don't be shy. Make sure you set your reminder and tune into the GSMC Wrestling Laureate Podcast tomorrow at 8 o'clock Pacific time and then 11 o'clock Eastern time. So gotta bid you adieu. Have a good night. Tune into Emran's Soccer Podcast happening right after this. So hey, have a beautiful night once again. Love you all and stay beautiful.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go to